akaseera keeko bannange. Mwami Bosa kwoli oba mukyala Bosa?
Wangi ssebo.
Mbadde nkusaba otwanjulire aboogezi baffe, otubuulire n'engeri ani asooka na kiki kye bagenda okwogerako. Weebale nnyo nnyabo.
Kale ssebo. Thank you so much. I want to take this opportunity to welcome our guest speakers. The first speaker is going to be Mark Oroma, followed by Kiyingi, and they're going to talk on the impact of COVID-19 on the community. Yes. Mr. Oroma, are you around?
Yes, sister, I'm here.
You're most welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, congregation. Thank you very much to the outgoing pastor. What a wonderful service. I feel very spiritually rejuvenated now since we've not been able to go to church in a while. I'm going to be talking today about the impacts of the coronavirus, or most commonly referred to as COVID-19. First of all, what's coronavirus? Coronavirus is a cluster of viruses which have been known to cause from the less severe cold, people refer to as the common cold. In Luganda, I know some of you refer to it as senyiga, to the more severe ones called the Middle East respiratory system or severe acute respiratory syndrome. I would be cheeky and refer to that. If you refer to the common cold as senyiga, perhaps to the more severe one, we'll call it nanyiga. You probably think, why do we want to do that? Because perhaps it's just like the hurricane. Since it's come, what is left in its wake has been devastation, chaos, and mayhem. It's robbed families. It's brought the economy to a crumbling standstill. It's actually changed the way how we view the world today. The world post-coronavirus is probably something we will not go back into it. Now, on the 31st December 2019, it was brought to the attention of the World Health Organization that there's a new strain of virus which originated from the village of Wuhan in China. On the 12th of January 2020, it was announced that a novel coronavirus had been identified in samples, and that cases of initially analysis of virus suggested that this was the cause of the outbreak. What outbreak? The virus was later referred to as SARS-CoV-2 and the associated disease as COVID-19. On 11th of February 2020, the World Health Organization named the syndrome caused by this novel coronavirus COVID-19. COVID-19 stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019, using its best practice guidance. We want to look at how this has impacted on our lives, how it's impacted on how we've changed things. I'm going to look at it from a perspective of parents. Also taking the perspective of a parent performing both a dual role of being the dad and the mom. First and most, what this has meant for me and lots of parents alike is that we had restrictive measures, meaning we couldn't travel into work. What did this mean? It meant that we were doing work from home. Those who were able to do work from home. Those who weren't able to do work from home were put on a scheme called furlough, meaning they were not working, but being remunerated for 80% of what they usually earn. How about those who could not actually work from home? Some lost their jobs. How did this impact on them? It led to anxiety. It led to stress. It led to other issues associated with not being able to support their families financially. As parents who work from home, there were more wider issues associated with this. fundamentally, those who had students or children who were homeschooling, there was the added responsibility that parents had to tutor their children. Now, it's not straightforward tutoring children. You have to be trained to be a teacher. If you're not a trained teacher, you have to be intelligent enough to understand the context and the content that you're actually feeding to your children. This alone added strain. If you're working from home, that meant there was interruption in what you were meant to be doing as per your work, which meant you had to stop and attend to your children, offering them guidance, offering them steer. Every so often, you had to check the work. I don't know how many of us parents actually have the acumen of being IT savvy or actually having the understanding of the syllabus that's taught here. I take it majority of us came to this country as grown-ups, for instance. How do we then understand the curriculum that is actually increasing the amount of work that you're doing? We put the schoolwork aside. How about catering for the children on a day-to-day basis? You have the whole idea of nurturing them, feeding them, making sure they are entertained, they are not bored. What does that mean? It means an increase in our gas bills, electricity, utilities, and other amenities like internet, telephone. Now, how do we cope as parents? Not in every household there's two parents working. It also means that usually in those situations, there are parents who do less secure jobs, which meant those who did less secure jobs run the risk of losing their jobs because they didn't have the facilities or were not in the situation that they could actually benefit from the furlough scheme. What did this mean for the entire household? It means there was added strain of finance. It means there was an economic shock to the family setup. When this happened, in most cases, it was women who were hit the most because you have the majority that are actually employed. Pardon, is someone interrupting?
Don't worry, they've muted themselves.
Okay. Sorry. When we look at all of this, how we have been juggling too much, you have either both parents working from home or both parents not working or one parent working from home. It brings another issue, a social issue of being cramped, being overcrowded. Not very many families own big enough spaces that are proportionate to the number of people in that family. For instance, if you have both parents working from home, where is the privacy when you need to actually stop and attend a work meeting? How do you differentiate for when you actually need to stop working because you're working from home? There is no cutoff. What does this then mean? It means that there's actually increased arguments between couples because you're now in a cramped environment, each person stepping on the other person's toes. How about for the mental state? It means there's a very big increase in mental health. When I talk about mental health, it's got many facets. I'm not actually qualified, but I will just talk about from a lay perspective. Due to the massive changes in the family dynamics, for instance, you cannot visit your friends, you cannot visit your family, you have no peer guidance or peer counsel, meaning that as individuals, issues that you were probably able to deal with by yourselves, or that you could actually gain counsel from your peers, you're now not able to. Compounded with closures of offices and amenities and places that offered such guidance, it meant that this was down to the couples to deal with. What did this lead to? It led to a very, very crucial an issue that's actually seen a rise in domestic violence. Domestic violence is both ways. The man being violent to the woman being violent to the man. Domestic violence is also, just to be clear, is not just going to be physical abuse. It's both psychological and emotional abuse. This is also not just synonymous with just the couples. There's a lot of parents that cannot cope with having their children around them. The fact that they now actually have to actually tutor their children, care for them, nurture them, actually act as counsel to their children as well for whatever issues they have, especially if you have multi-children in the house. How is that going to impact on the parents? A lot of parents had an escape in going into work, but that escape has been removed. And everything is now within the confines of your house. How have parents been able to cope? Previously, we had lots of coping mechanisms. For instance, the shops were open for those who actually like to do a little bit of retail therapy. I know you can still do that online, but it's not the same. It's actually very important to get out of the house, get out of your environment, and go and physically do this retail therapy. You have instances where your children do what you call active schooling. What does active schooling mean? Active schooling means those that actually are having classes with the tutors or teachers there to guide them. If you don't have a large enough space in your house, how are you able to accommodate this? The answer is you won't be able to. What's the outcome? The outcome is anxiety, outcome is stress, outcome is everyone getting on everyone's nerves. There are basic things that we take for granted. Appliances, for instance. Cookers, fridges, microwaves. How often are we using them now that we are all in the home at the same time? What's the wear and tear on those? That compounds because we're now actually within proximity of our fridges. It leads to another health issue. Probably eating too much, probably gaining some weight with closures of gyms and other health center facilities. We are not able to go and work this out. What does that lead to? That then brings back the pressure to the couple or to the person being the adult in the house. One other thing that we neglect is a lot of our children have become young adults. These young adults perhaps are not handling the situation with the pandemic, with the lockdown, with the restrictive movement. Do they have an outlet where they can go and vent out? No. So which means they come back to what I call the Citizens Advice Bureau of Dad and Mom. Are they qualified to handle certain issues? Perhaps not. They can deal with what they're qualified to handle. But what's the mental state of our children or our young adults? That's an area that Baker will touch on, but it still impacts on a parent, because a parent's wish, a parent's role, a parent's responsibility is to ensure that their children are well, physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally. We look at the cultural aspect of things with closures of churches, closures of halls, civic communities. We've had couples that had planned weddings, planned engagements. For those who perhaps would have wanted more traditional, would have planned things such as introductions. With the curtail in travel and the uncertainty of when we'll be able to travel again and be able to reschedule, resume, and restart the life again, how is this going to impact on those people? How are they going to deal with it inside their homes? All of this manifests itself. It brings resentment, amongst couples, amongst adults. It brings animosity towards each other. In those instances, we find that the more vulnerable and gentle gender, as in the women, are on the receiving end of it. Not to say that the men aren't on the end of it, but the numbers are higher for women than men. When we look at some of the cultural issues we deal with, we are a people who love to commune, we love to fellowship, we love to visit. We've been dealing with instances where our friends, our families have been bereft. And we cannot even offer those people physical presence. Traditionally, culturally, embracing or hugging people seems to mitigate some of these emotional issues. Now, this has actually been taken away. Where has that left us? We've lost loved ones, and we've not been able to attend the send-off. We've not been able to condole with the immediate family. Now, how is this impacting on us? It's impacted in a way that it's increased the pain, the strain, the pressure, anxiety, and above all, the mental state of adults and parents. Some of the things that COVID has brought now is also the use of technology. How does it impact on adults? Not every adult is IT savvy or technologically savvy. What does that mean? Does it mean they're being left out? To a degree. Does it mean that they're able to access all the services they need? Perhaps not. Now, all of this brings back, and it all stems back to the mental health of that individual. Are they able to deal with it? We don't know. Personally, I know that we've had increases of poor health due to mental health. We've had increases of some deaths due to poor health and mental health again. This is the new norm. We don't know when this situation is actually going to change. But as it is, the impact on families, particularly adults, is immense. And even to begin to say what the impact is, we won't be able to say for many more years to come. Because the level of anxiety and strain that as adults we have to live with, it's not measurable. You've got the psychological side of it, you've got the physiological side of it, the emotional, physical, financial shock. All we can do is we can pray and hope that the vaccine is actually active and effective, and it's up to individuals to decide what they think or how they feel. Because with the vaccine, perhaps there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But please do not take this as an advert for me advocating for you to go and take the vaccine. Please make your own decision on what you want to do. I think I'll leave my points here. If anyone has any questions that I may be able to answer, feel free. Thank you very much.
Can I suggest that you put up your hand if you want to put a question to Mark? In the meantime, Mark, people would like to know who is Mark? What does Mark do? Mark, they want to know about you. Please tell us about yourself, Mark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mchibi. Mark, Oroma.
Mark is a member of Mark.
First of all, I'm glad to hear you pronouncing my name right. Secondly, the person that printed the flyer, 2 errors on it, spelling my name wrong as an aroma. That's a scent. And the date on the flyer says 21st of February. That was last Sunday.
We beg your pardon.
No worries. To err is human. Mark is a policy advisor dealing with issues of animal health and welfare. And Mark is employed by the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, with our offices based next door to the Houses of Parliament. On the 23rd of March, it's going to be a year since I last stepped into our offices. During this lockdown, I think I've only been on the buses once. So Mark also is a member of Team Marco. I remember in 2017 when I became a widower. I had plenty of support from Reverend and Mrs. Ntege and a few members of the church. So upon returning back to England after the burial, I attended church a few times. And I recall that Team Marco Blue Team did not have very many members, and we kind of got into the team, and it's built and gotten bigger ever since. Those who don't see me regularly, because I attend my Catholic church, St. Boniface in Tooting, because that's where the boys have been christened and had their Holy Communion. So for school purposes and other things, it takes precedence and priority. But whenever there are bigger issues and Team Mark was involved, you will see a glimpse of me. Like the Reverend who disappeared, I'm also from Surrey. And the weather's very, very lovely. I can see the setting sun. What a picture. And for those who know Muchala Bossa, Evelyn Bossa, that's my young sister. And Mr. Christopher Bossa, that's my brother-in-law.
Thanks so much, Mark. Does anybody want to put a question to Mark? Raise your hand, please.
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
I have a suggestion
Go on.
that we have the talk. We have both speakers give the talks, and then we have questions at the end, given accordingly.
Is that okay with you, Mark?
Absolutely.
Okay, so please, members, I beg that you muwandiika ebibuuzo byammwe. Mark ajja kuba abiddamu. Mwami Kiyingi, oli?
Yes, sir.
Twali tusaba oteekeko vidiyo yo tukulabe.
Weri mukama wange sebo.
Otuwe n'ekiramuso kya Allah.
Okay, mbalamusizza mwenna bali wano ku platform eno. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ndowooza kyekyo ekiramuso sebo ky'obadde onsabye sebo, si kyekyo?
Wa alaikum salam wa alhamdulillahi wa barakatuh.
Era neeyanza omu okuba nti mwandowoozezaako ne mulaba nti nno nze bwe mulabe okuba nga nzija nemba nga nsobola okuba nga mbatuusaako ebigambo bino bye ngenda okuba nga mbabuulira, era nsaba Mukama Katonda ansobozesa okuba nga mbidelivaringa nga bigenda bulungi nga bwe ndabiteeseteese, ate tusabe nti bikola amakulu bisobola okuba nga bibaako ne bye kituyamba. Nasobiddwa okuba nga njogera ku COVID-19, engeri gye affectinzemu abaana abato, how it has affected or impacted the youth. Amanye gange nze Beka Kiyingi. Yes, nena kusooka neeyanjule nga nze Beka Kiyingi, amanya nga bwe babadde bagoogedde nga neddira ndiga. Nze president w'abavubuka mu community yaffe ya Ugandan Muslim Community, era nina ne charity organization gye bayita First Aid First Hand, nga tugezaako okubeera nga tusensitizing first aid e Uganda, kubanga abantu bangi batufaako nga tebandibadde tebakola ki, tebafa, naye lwakuba tebamanyi ngeri gya kubayamba. era nga nina wano ne project eya Roots to Unity, nina bannange betugiddukanya nabo nga nze chairman waayo. Project bagita Roots to Unity, nga tugezaako kulaba nti tuyamba abaana abavubuka abato challenges ze balina, tusobola okuba nga tubayamba okusobola okubeera nga bamodelinga obulamu bwabwe bandyagadde okubeera, nti oli bw'aba alina kyagala okubeera, nti ayagala kubeera musomesa, ayagala kubeera lawyer, ayagala kubeera engineer, asobola okubeera nga amanyi ssente meka zagenda okukola, bintu ki byagenda okubeera ng'ayitamu, kwegamba biki byalina okuyitamu okubeera ng'atuuka eyo n'okuinstillinga confidence mu baana, kuba abaana bangi tebalina confidence era tebasobola okuba nga beeyogerako. Nyakyogerako mu maaso eyo. Ate era ndi radio presenter ku community radio, abamu gye mumanyi gye bayita 75 radio, nga ninako programu ebeera buli lwakusatu bagiyita Bridging the Gap, nga tugezaako okwogera ku topics discussions esobola okuba nga ziyamba okuzibya emyaganya oba bridge the gaps ziri mu community yaffe, mu families ne mu community at large. Kati ngenda omusomo gwe bansabye okuba nga njogerako gugenda kubeera nga guli ku baana abavubuka. Kati nagudividinzeemu ku levels abaana gye baliko, tusobole okubeera nga tulaba how different stages engeri abaana gye babadde affected. Tugenda kutandika nga njogera n'abali mu nursery, abali mu nursery ne primary, n'abagasse wamu abo bamusoma batulosomera awamu. Ngende kuba secondary, then ngende kuba college and higher education, then njagenda kuba young adults, then tumalize ne solutions, then wemunaabayo n'ebibuuzo mujja kuba nga musobola obibuuza. Kano tukena aba nursery and primary. Aba nursery ne primary bano kwegamba tebamanyi kigenda mu maaso. They are confused. They have no idea what the hell is going on. Kwegamba tunula ne balaba bagamba COVID tebakimanyi, bagamba kwegamba balina kubeera mu ssomero naye tebagenda mu ssomero. Ate most of them have not had the chance to be explained, okumubulira nti kino bwekiti kye kigenda mu maaso. Ate abamu ne bona kimugamba bwe kigenda okukoma, ajja kuba nga yeetaaga ne next day okubeera ng'okola ki ng'okimubuulira, kuba ajja kuba tamanyi biki by'oyogerako. Abamu balaba abamu bakaaba, abazadde abamu bakaaba, abamu boogera bino, we've lost this, naye nga tebamanyi exactly what's going on. So it's been quite confusing eri bano abaana abato. So they're in uncertainty. So baba beetaaga okubeera nga bababuulira what really is happening. They need to be explained to. Kati most of them have experienced, they're seeing death. Most of them they've lost loved ones, and it's really a struggling moment. They're seeing a lot of people dying, a lot of people mami agambona food day kugambanga mbutuufu si kirungi era nga tebamanyi exactly how to take it. Isolation and missing pairs. They are isolated at home. They have no idea what to do. They should be, like I said, they should be in school. There's no a chance for them to express themselves. Kakati tuli waka naye tebamanyi balina kubanga bazanya. So ebintu bingi nnyo balina mikwano gyabwe bo bamanyi naye wakabamu abamuzaala yekka ngendo kakkana ali yekka, bamaama abamu bataata bakolera waka. So there's really challenges amaanyi nnyo okuba nti bali waka ng'ate bandi badde bakola ki bali ku ssomero. So there's a change of dynamics at home. Kati abazadde abamu bakolera waka, ti time wadde bwe bali n'abaana naye abazadde obeera ataliwo, nti omuzadde ocreatinze office space yo naye ate n'omwana naye ali waka, ati bamu kwegamba ayagala abeere nga naye ani yeetaaga attention nga omwami avudde waggulu bwagambye nti they need attention, they need to be looked after. But at the same time, you as a parent, things have changed at home. You're at home, but you're not really at home because you have to be working. So that's the challenge the youth, the nursery and primary schools students have experienced. There's a higher increase or chances of abuse. For example, for example, omuzadde olina office desk ye waka, omwana najja adduka azannya n'ayiwaka mpapula by'amazzi oba drink n'omukuba oluyi. Omwana tamanyidde, takikoze mu nsobi, takikoze takigenderedde. So there's a high increase of chances of abuse. You might do something out of stress, affecting omwana. Also, there's a chance of kubeera nti being that the stress like the gentleman previously spoke about, most parents, they are experiencing mental health and they're stressed. So some of them have taken up alcohol, some of them have taken up smoking, whatever, different, even drugs misuse, as parents. So the chances are you're going to do things that you wouldn't have done had you been in your own state of mind. Effects of poor parental mental health, which is Chambade explaining how mental health anyway, it comes down to bana abato. Tina bone babanga bakola ki by experiencing characteristics ebintu byoyitamu challenges ola abaana baziraba. So you're not yourself as a parent, so it's good okulaba nti if body or suffering from some behavioral characteristics zolaba zotalina kubanga ng'oli mu mbeera ebintu wetunuulira nti ebintu byotatera kukola kubanga obikola. Big passing it down eri abaana. Challenges with online learning. The abaana stage, their attention span is very, very, very low. Attention span here when the schools have given them resources of government online. Sometimes the resources are not there. Even resources that maybe the older brothers are using them. So for them, they get to miss out. Being that their attention span is very low and they're being told to use online resources, they're not going to be able to remain there and study like they should. So as a parent, you have to give them more time, which most parents haven't had really. Lack of playtime. At school, this stage, I think they do more playing than studying, because this is their stage where they're at. Stage they get time, never want time being that they're not allowed outside, they're isolated. So so affecting even now stress. So it's literally led to them falling back in their development. So these youth, when these kids go outside and play, they're doing exercise, they're keeping fit, they're basically they're expressing themselves, but they're not having that chance because they're at home. So sometimes things they learn at school, they're not going to be able to learn them at home. They're definitely not going to be able to learn at home because at school there are different professionals that are literally trained to help these children develop. I take a body worker and they're not getting the attention that they should. To get to secondary primary stage, stage, they have lost loved ones as well. By losing their aunties, uncles, most of them were close to these people. So literally they're like, I used to go to uncle so and so, I used to go to auntie so and so, but now I'm not going to be able to kind of like be able to speak to them again. And at the same time, they've not been able to go and gain closure, so that's going to be a challenge to them. They're falling behind in their school, this is something very, very huge, because all the things they've been studying, the way they're meant to be studying at home, there is no way they're going to be doing that at home. Some of them are going to be playing games. Some of them are not even going to be paying attention in the Zoom classes, so this is a very, very big challenge, and it's basically going to hinder their progress. Disproportional grading. Right now, they're going to be graded based on how they were performing, based on one teacher's mind, teacher gamba no mwana ali what mwana waba reactive ngine dalu. Sometimes it could be even racism. We a teacher tamwagala, but they're going to be judged to that because they've not had the chance to be judged or graded regards to how they perform. Social and emotional well-being. When they go to school, they socialize with other peers. There are professionals where if kids went through some, one of at school, they notice. There are professionals at schools where they can go and speak to them. Even they socialize with their other peers, to take stress away from home. That's the challenge now, being that they're isolated at home. They've not been able to go and see their friends. Mental health. There's a study that came out that most kids are locking themselves away in bedrooms. Literally, they're confused. They're stressed. We're coming up to a year since this lockdown. started okuva COVID wetandika. So this is really affecting their mental health, their mental state. Kwegamba, it's really, really disturbing. Nayenga, as parents, it's good to take care of don't single behavior. Behaviors most of them have felt lonely. Most of them are single. Mwana aliyomo bazadde bamwazala omwana aliyomo yekewaka. So ate kati buli omu ewaka buli stage buli omu gyaliko omuzadde akola abaana abalala buli omu ali mu kilaasi ye kati buli abamu bali awo kwegamba batudde bali bokka. So they are lonely because they don't get to socialize with other people. Different measure of development. Kati wano nti abaana abamu abalina abagagga bagenda okuba nga basobola okuleeta resources zonna okuba nti bakola buli kisoboka abaana okubeera nga bakola ki babeera nga they develop, you know, nti babafunira ba tutors ne baba nga putting extra effort okuba nti basomesa abaana. Naye kati abazadde abatalina busobozi abamu abaana bagenda kuba nga bafolinze back kuba n'abazadde abamu wabanga ye ali busy talina budde bwira abantu ono omwana bye bamuwadde ku ssomero okubikola abikoze bamugambye kukola ku ssomero abikoze. So baba bagenda kuba nga bamu tebakula ku stage gye bandibadde bakulirako osanga nga bali ku ssomero. Abuse nga bwe nayogedde the same as the previous nursery and primary nti there's a chances of abuse being abused at home, you know, nti okubeera nga abazadde stress coming down eri ku baana ne oba nti challenges zoyitamu ate sometimes you react the way you wouldn't have reacted had you been in a normal state of mind. Kati chances of abuse nti abaana bali waka abamu there's a high number of kids that get abused at home basically banji nnyo, you know, naye lwakuba tewaliwo omuntu baana basobola kati kwogera nabo naye kati lyo omwana bwagenda ku ssomero basobola okumulaba nti waliwo amukubya oluyi waliwo amukubi ne banga asobola okuba nga ayogera abamu kati abazadde babasibira ewaka tolina gy'olaga you know, so abamu bagetinga na abuse even by their older brothers, even same as n'abali abalala abato they get abused by their younger or other siblings. So gangs and crime right now office yang mulimu cases biri gangs and crime literally you would imagine engeri gye tuli mu lockdown there's no gangs, there's no, you know, the chances of crime being committed are very low, but gangs and drugs are literally, the numbers have risen from even last year. The numbers are very, very high. Locally, office yange mulimu abazadde abamu bamwana bamusanze n'emmundu ewaka bali badde bagimuteresa omulala bamusanze n'ebiso babirabe mu ssimu ng'alina ebiso alina gy'agenda. So omwana afuluma ewaka n'agenda. Most parents tebamanyi wa gy'alaze, but most of them are going to commit crime. So most of these youths are vulnerable to because they were like they're lonely at home, but most of them go out. I'm going for a walk, but where are they going? College and higher education. They've lost loved ones, obviously. These ones, they understand COVID-19. You know, COVID-19, most of them are batata. This is a very, very huge challenge. You know, challenge they need support. Group, they need support. So, you know, parent over auntie, please, they need help. Someone speaks to them. They've fallen back in school and development, like Ngabwe previously. They're not really resources so this is really affected their development. Lack of studying equipment, laptops, studying online, laptops, but it's hard for them at the same time, so there are challenges in the equipment. New responsibilities, stage key workers, so that they don't get COVID-19 and bring it back home. So you've kept them at home. At the same time, they have to study. At the same time, you've given them the responsibility of looking after their younger siblings. So this has impacted their development as well. Responsibilities, so related stress, and sometimes, yeah, stress increases in they need people to speak to reassure them how they're coping. They need communication. bafuna kati. So this has led to mental health and local nabo kubanga tebalina beboogera nabo tebalina baani bagenda kubanga but picking up behaviors zaabwe, characters zaabwe okuba nti baziraba basobola okubeera nga babawa appropriate help gye baba beetaaga nti kati baliwako omuzadde things are happening tobimanyi mental health bantu bangi kigamba kirone tebakimanyi tebakitegeera tebamanyi biki they're like biki ebyo si bya in our culture tukiramu nti kintu kya mu culture yaffe naye abaana bano really so n'abamu abakola they've lost jobs nti ababadde mulabye maduuka mangi nnyo agagadde wate stage eno bangi nnyo bakola mu retail. So many retail shops have closed down. So many of them have been followed. Most of them have been let go. During this Christmas period, abamu bafunayo obulimulimu basobola okufunayo ku busente, but they've not been able actually to do that. Why? Because so many companies have shut up. They've gone into administration. What's going on? Lack of social life. Yes, most of them, they basically socialize at home. They socialize at bagenda mu arcades, bagenda mu never socializing ku mikwano gyabwe bagenda ko mu park ne bagenda ko ne basanyo ne bakola activities. Like all those things were put at stop. Tebalina activities zonna ze basobola genda kola those that so this affects their kugamba engeri gye babeera engeri gye balowooza ebirowoozo bingi bibagenda mu mutwe abamu they don't care, sometimes they end up living home abamu like I said abuse abamu they are getting abused at home just like that stages ziri endala same gangs tibaana bangi nnyo kati normally bagenda ku ssomero nabanga balina something to pass their time naye kati tewali so this is the high chance of them joining gangs nti gangs zibeerawo they're running through bagenda mass so they're always recruiting gangs baana bwoba olabye omwana wo kwegayiridde nga alina trainers nga sigwe yazimugulidde mubuuze gye yazijje try and find out what gye yazijje kubanga really this is a big challenge. Young adults Hilwa young adults bano tubala simanyi mumpulira bulungi.
Yes sir.
Okay, so young adults, these young adults, some of them have finished college or they finished high school. They're meant to go to college or university, but getting to the next stage of their life. Some of them chose not to go to maybe university and they want to be getting jobs, going into apprenticeships. The chances are all of these resources are closed, nothing is happening. So they're at home being idle, doing nothing. So chiba affecting their mindset, mind yabo kulaba nti giba balowooza. So reduced job opportunities. Tulabye abamu mbano they choose to go and work. Everything is closed up. Buli kimu kigaddewo. Tebamanyi what to do, tebamanyi what kikyakola wa kugenda. So abamu baba baagala okukola after college naye kati baba tebasobola. Interrupted social life nabo baagala nnyo okubanga bagenda out ne bamitinga ku mikwano gyabwe ne bacommunicatinga ne baba nga changing up scenery naye kati tebasobola. Stress on relationships. Kati relationships abamu mu bo baagala maybe probably to get married or abamu ku bo they already married abamu ku bo baagala they going into relationships naye kati abamu they're being abused or even very stressed they can't get this because banonya sente kubanga bagenda to that level naye kati baba tebasobola. Mental health, their mental well-being is really affected. Every single person has been affected. So checking our mental well-being. They're also vulnerable to gangs being the very idle, So wherever they're idle, the chances are they're gonna use drugs. There's a high stress. There's a chance where they're getting gangs, never getting drugs, just to they drink more than they should. So when they've committed crime, so they haven't got access to health services due to the fear and anxious to go to health. Like hospitals, to go to health service, to go to the health services and don't know where to get services online. Services is online kweziri nero kwati bali n'ababuulira nti kati kino ku online kwekiri kino tekiriko kino bwekiti kino so very stressed being that abamu bafunye embuto, abamu bafunye health problems in tebasobola going anywhere. Why? Because they feel like but yokufuna corona, or they feel like tebagala gendayo, they're stressed, so they feel like abantu bagenda nga boogera nabo okuba nti babayamba, the services are closed. Tugenda solutions. Solutions is communication. We need to have communication at home. Like tell them what is happening, try and explain what is happening. What is happening. Everyone is confused. Nobody confused now. They need to be explained to you. How do they find it? So you would be able to get them the help they need. Identify those most affected and get them help. Behaviors ze wakazikyuse ebintu byakola tatera bikola bulijjo ebintu bikyuse engeri gye yeyisamusi bwe yeyisa bulijjo. Please try and understand why so that we can help and musobole okubanga tumanya musobole okubanga musobole bafunira help. The help is there. Mu community muno tulina ba professionals bangi nnyo musobola okubeera nga mubatuukira ne baba nga bakola ki babayamba. So look out for that change of behavior. Mwana wabali n'ebintu byakola tatera bikola. That is very key. Do pick things up. Don't temudda mukola oba biki kubanga aba muri stress nabo. These children are your responsibility. Musobola okubanga mubayamba. Encourage more exercise and eating well. Yes, encourage them. Go to walks. Mutambule nabo. When you go for a walk, tobaleka wakanga bazanya PlayStation oba bali kumasimu oba wakola chi. Go out together, walk together. Mutambule munyumie mulabe chiche bakola, and also mulye wamu musobola okubanga mulye ebintu ebili healthy ebigenda okubanga building an immune system. Encourage those who are eligible to attend school. Katubera ngoliki waka tutya kutwala abaana bo ku ssomero bakirize bagende basobole okubanga bafuna help gye bafuna okazanya okumuleka ewaka mu nyumba ekogenda muleka ewaka mu nyumba yekka tagenda kubanga asoma byeyandibadde asoma. They're not going to be learning at all. They're going to just be playing games about, so if there's a chance for them to go to school, please encourage them to go to school. And if you need help, speak to the schools or someone. Help. Yogera n'amasomero wabeerayo sinjosobola okuba amasomero muka contacting help services zino gye ziri bajja kubanga they will be able to help you so that you can literally gain the help you need. And also speak to someone in our community. Like I said, we have so many professionals. We need to create communities where our communities self-heal themselves. We have these professionals, let's use them, to body professional. You have these services, please do come back and help your community. Services in the communities, families. Please offer your services to the community so that we can help heal our community. So yeah, get children into activities, clubs, somewhere they can belong. They're vulnerable to entering gangs or join drugs or any like drug misuse or cause gangs womwana wa in activity. Then one of agenda swimming here, enough football over ku church, ku church. The chances are very low of them joining gangs. Kwanga they have something to take their mind off things, they have something to put attention on. The chances are very high. They're very, very vulnerable. Roots to Unity. Roots to Unity project twatandika nti tuyamba abaana okubeera nti omwana bw'aba alina kyayagala okubeera ntwagala amanye nti bw'aba ayagala kubeera doctor amanye nti ngenda kukola this type of ngenda kubeera doctor bw'ati ngenda kufuna ssente bweziti, so that they have that motivation to drive them to achieve what they want to be. Negative, most children, they end up doing things they have no passion in. The confidence. They're not confident enough. So when they go out and face the world, they're not going to be able to achieve what they would be capable of doing. Why? Because they're not confident. This depends on so many levels. How bringing it is different. So many of them are not going to be confident to achieve the goals they would actually be able to achieve. So we're trying to get them to model their lives. Also, kubaigiriza different skills. Doctor, engineering skills, so that they have different options. what they can achieve, ne baba nga basobola kubanga achievinga. Ate tulina ne project tutandise tugenda kutwala in December, tugenda kuba tutwala abaana Uganda, abantu abavubuka abaana bonna waliwo so far we've got many that have registered. We're going to be taking them to Uganda in December, inshallah. Okusobola okubeera nga tubalaga Uganda, because most of these youths, they're the ones that are going to help develop Uganda. So if you will have a child, or omuvubuka ali awo and wonna batayagala Uganda, mujje mutwogere naffe tujja kuba nga tusobola okubeera nga tubayamba okuba nga tubalaga why the Uganda is a good option for them. Religion, encourage your children to be religious. Omwana bw'aba tayagala kujja mu church, mukake gwamuzaala. There's no reason why no, I don't want to go to church, I don't want to go to the mosque, I don't want to do this. Encourage them. When they're at home, they're going to be up to mischief. So encourage them to be religious, encourage them to basically go be religious, have faith. Once someone hasn't got faith, they're capable of doing anything. Thank you very much for listening, and just my presentation, and if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask. Hopefully it made sense.
Definitely it did. Beka webale nnyo, webalire ddala abantu baabano wano babuuza ebibuuzo.
Mine is not a question.
Okay.
Can I thank both speakers actually? Mark, Baker, thank you very much for the time you put into this. It's really comprehensive. No, I never expected this topic to be this long. So I've been surprised. I just want maybe to compliment on Mark's talk with some positives. I think a lot of what Mark was concentrating on were the negatives, but I think there's a few things we could have learned from this time. So I have about 4 points here. One of them is that we have been able, never before maybe, spent a lot of time with our children and spouse. I think that's a positive. It depends how you use that time. There's been a bit of savings on, a few things. You don't have to travel much. But it doesn't help if you're not working. And I've got one more or two more. Some people have actually used this time to be very, very creative. I won't go into details, but I'm sure you've seen people coming up with some business ideas and such like. And finally, the technology. Who knew that one day it has it good or bad, but I remember traveling to meetings. Say you work in Croydon and you travel to London or North London for 1 hour meeting and back. But I don't think this will happen again. So I think those are some of what I think are positives from all of this. So yeah, not questions, but just adding to. Thank you.
Webale nnyo mwami Kalanzi, kati kampulire ku Barbara.
I don't have like a question as such, only that my question will be at the end for Uncle Mark, being a mom and dad. How has he managed to, like to serve two posts in one, and how has it affected him personally as a man actually, because he's a mom and a dad at the same time. I really feel for him, but I just wanted him to share this whole thing affected him. But I also wanted to compliment and really thank both speakers for this. Has been really, really very elaborative. They put in a lot of time. Thank you so much, both of you. And I'm sure everybody on the forum has really gained and learned or picked one thing or two. One of the other positives also from this whole thing, the parents, most parents have started their own businesses, and something that they never thought about. They've become so creative, started businesses. So yes, the negatives and the impact of COVID are enormous on our health mentally. But I think they've with the new normal, which we have to embrace. So I just really wanted to thank Uncle Mark and Becca Omuliga, of course, Kuntiko, Avendiga, Tuliva Kavinyo. Nako kankaiseyo. Mwebale nnyo mwebalire ddala Mukama abangere omukisa.
Thank you very much, Auntie Barbara. And also the previous person that complimented my my talk. Regarding the challenges and the management, personally, I have embraced this lockdown more than individuals. Not to say that we haven't had like personal tragedies, ailments, bereavement, but I have appreciated the fact that it's reduced on my anxiety in terms of childcare, in terms of rushing home from central London to be able to meet certain deadlines, making sure the children have actually eaten after they come back from school. Now, I have enjoyed getting up and being ready in 10 minutes to be logged on. So that's cutting down on the travel time. In terms of work, productivity is increased. I've got very involved with the kids in some of the activities, like Baker was saying, pick an activity that, I don't have just 2 children now. My circumstances, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. The 2 boys and 1 girl play football, which including my nephews, Jeremiah, Joseph. There's been a lot of development in their footballing. It's led them to greater heights now. One of them is in a football academy. That's due to the hours that's been invested. Now, culminated with the fact that I have flexible working, which means that I can actually start my work early in between, because one of the challenges as parents we have with the children is the lack of space, the amount of pent-up energy that they have. But if you can take them on to a park and make sure that they can run and burn out that energy, then it reduces the amount of headache. Back to what Baker was saying earlier on about the slap, that sometimes you inadvertently slap your child, or which could lead to abuse. But if they have certain structure in their day from morning to evening, then you could have some peace of mind. And Auntie Barbara, with my situation, I've already had practice prior to this, because I was working from home 2 days a week, Thursdays and Fridays. So working from home 5 days a week, it just kind of helped it, making sure that more where everything is. And taking on with the earlier comment, I personally, really appreciated the bonding time with the family. I'd say something that people may throw stones at me. I'll probably say, long may this lockdown continue. Where's the rush? Where's the hurry? Where are you going to? My only prayers is that the vaccine works and it reduces the number of deaths and the number of people that have got other underlying issues. Otherwise, it's something that we've been able to manage and manage very well. I hope that answers your comment, Aunt Barbara.
Ndoza Aunt Barbara otegedde bulungi.
Yes, yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kale katuwulire Aunt Edith. Aunt Edith tukulindiridde mukwano.
Bannaye kansooka okwebaza omukulu Mark na mukulu Baker for the presentation. That was very, very good presentation. Kakati nze twali twogeramu n'abavubuka bange bano abagenda okuddayo kusoma. And they came up with some things, fears zaabwe nenjagala Elvia sharing nammwe kubanga yeetegekera okuddayo kusoma.
Some of my friends have had COVID and actually scared to go back to see them because I don't know if I'm going to miss it.
Okay. Nti mikwano gye egimu ya families zaabwe balwala COVID-19. So she's scared to go back to school. Kubanga tamanyi oba bajja musiga obulwadde. Nga mulaba gye tulaga. So what do you say about that, basically? What advice can you give her?
Baker, tukyali fenna.
Yes, okay. The advice I'll give is communication. You know? They need to be communicated to individually to find out exactly why, what are the fears. There might be other reasons that are leading to this. So I would encourage is to get someone to speak to her and also with the mom present to find out exactly why, what is matter, but also reassuring her that there are measures that have been taken to make sure that people want to happen like COVID for something. Like, for example, everything is being cleaned at school, there are measures that have been put in place so that to make sure that people don't get infected with COVID. At the same time, reassure the child, give them confidence that where they're going. The services at school are well catered for, whereby, because obviously all the measurements by law, every has to follow those guidelines to make sure every child is protected. So once you reassure her, she's definitely going to be confident facing her school, so that she can have the confidence to go back to school before. So yeah, just communicate to her, reassure her that also even teachers, tell teachers to have a word with her as well when she goes back, to tell her that everything is okay at school. And for her age as well, she's healthy. If she stays fit, does her exercise, active, eating well, she will have no problem getting COVID. I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very good.
Can I also add on to that? It's very important, the point that Baker put earlier on of talking to our children. It's not just talking. During the earlier phases of lockdown, we had the Prime Minister giving announcements. It's very important to get the children involved in watching the news, and after that, explaining to them. Now, there are certain fundamental things we do in our houses. So if you practice it in your house, like the washing hands normally without even COVID being the issue. So when a child understands and comprehends those, that will actually add on to their confidence. Now, I know from my children's teachers, different schools, every week we have a liaison meeting over the phone. And the first question that's asked is the mental health of the child. Now, let the children be involved, because when I speak with my children's school, I don't actually answer the question. I ask the children to answer. I ask them to respond. I ask them how they feel. And then after a while, I will summarize that. So back to Baker's presentation, it's more the involvement of the children and the knowledge, being widely aware. A lot of the times we as parents protect our children. We don't actually tell them. I'll tell you what I do with my children, especially when I know we have an announcement by the Prime Minister. I'll let them watch the news and I ask them to explain it to me. So where I think they may not have got it right, then I sit and talk to them. Of course, mine's different because I've taken my children to my workplace, so they understand a little bit how government works. And it's something that, back to what Auntie Barbara was saying, I spend a lot of time with the boys and we sit down and we chat, we discuss things. Sit with my 9-year-old and you think you're talking to a 16, 17-year-old in terms of reasoning. So parents, sometimes we need to empower children, because what we do is we sometimes hold them back. We are afraid to like let them find out certain things, but empower them, make them. When I was younger in Uganda, my dad would come back for lunch, bring every newspaper, Vision, Times, you name it, Monitor. And when he comes back from work in the evening, he wants you to explain to him everything that you read in the newspaper. So taking those is how I actually implement how my children take in information. So getting back to exactly what Baker said, empower the child more, because this is the age of technology. It's a shame you don't have, we taking the camera where you can see the list of iPhones we all have now. And that's the expense on part of parents to make sure that the children are IT savvy, but they can actually come up with something that would be more beneficial. And what we talked about earlier on, like creating a business, an enterprise can actually come out of this situation. So we also have to embrace it. Thank you.
Yeah, to add on that, parents, if you've started a new business, get your child involved. You know, ask them, what do they think? You know, that way you'll be bridging gaps within, you know, your family. Just communicate to them, get them involved in whatever you're doing. Because don't let the TV, if they watch too much TV, other programs are going to be bringing them up. So if you speak to them, bring them up the way you want them to be brought up, not how the society wants them to basically, develop.
Can I add on a little thing about that for Ivy?
Yes, Aunt Barbara, you can do.
Mbadde njagala kwogerako eri Ivy on the medical side, side y'abasawo nti Ivy, don't worry too much about your friends if their parents had COVID, because COVID is not so rampant in your age group, in the children. For instance, I had COVID, but none of my children had it, even when I was testing, because we have these testing kits at home. When I tested them, and much as they used to come near me all the time, they never had it. So you guys have a stronger immunity. It doesn't mean that you can't get COVID, but you have stronger immunity and resistance. So take that on board as well. Much as their parents have COVID, the chances are that the children are not going to get it are high as well.
But remember to keep safe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Say thank you. Thank you very much. That was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bannange wakyaliyo omulala abuuza ekibuuzo oba olukiiko tuluggalewo.
No mugamba nti immunization is going round, so very soon even the children in schools will be immunized. So everybody will eventually be safe if we embrace the vaccine.
Thank you very much. LV, I think that's good. Good start.
Badde nsaba kwongera ku bya mwami Kiyingi byayogedde.
Yes, Mwami Kalanzi.
Mwami Kiyingi webale nnyo, webalire ddala obudde bw'otaddemu. N'okunnyonnyola okw'amaanyi ennyo bwe kutyo, webale nnyo, webalire ddala. Simanyi oba muli aweya nti nno abaana bano abavubuka bagenda bakola parties ku ssimu, nga kino kye tukola naye nga party. Beka oli ku familia ne kino. Simanyi how safe this is. Ekyo kibuuzo gy'oli oli ku side yaabwe okusinga nze. So that's one. Number two, those are eating habits. Mr. Mark Oroma yajogeddeko dda. I think this applies to our children as well. They have a lot of time and they're bored, and the next thing kye raiding a fridge. How we can handle that. Sleeping patterns. But because these kids have their routine is gone, and sometimes you can understand. Why do I need to go to bed at 9 or 8 or whatever time, when I'll literally roll out of bed, like Mark said, 10 minutes, and I'm in a classroom? It's a challenge. Don't know how to handle it. But otherwise, thank you very much for the in-depth talk and some of the solutions you've given to us. Thank you.
Thank you. In regards to parties, yes, they do. That phone that you see, that device, that mobile phone, that laptop, there is a lot of information on there. Kuliko bintu bingi nnyo. Wegamba omwana videos going around, things go viral, they receive things they have no control over on their phone. So they're invited to these parties. Nga bwe nabagamba waliwo case eri mu office yaffe nti omwana omu bagenza okugenda mu ssimu ng'alina ennyumba gy'alimu tebagimanyi naye nga akozesa biso twagamba akutta ebiso balaba n'ewaka yeekwatako ng'abiri n'ewaka nebiki bwe bityo naye kwegamba all of these challenges abaana babirina kwegamba it's very kwegamba one message emu bweti esobola okuyita ku ssimu buli mwana n'afuluma ennyumba ye n'agenda mu location gye baba waddeeyo just by one mere message naye tumanyi mwana gyagamba I'm going out for a walk n'agenda. So as parents the advice is to take extra care okulaba nti nno abaana bamwe gye bali mumanyi gye bali kubanga mugenda ku mirimu ne mukola bo mubalese waka bokka naye ng'ate tali waka message emu bwetyo omwana mufulumya mu nnyumba nokuli omwana bamustabinze naye ng'ate gw'oliwa oli ku mulimu oli eno omwana gwe nalese waka alina okuba nga alabirira banne naye nga challenge kugamba challenge weeri mu baganda okubanga bagenda mu bintu bwe bityo okubanga bagenda gye mutamanyiwa gye balaga kubanga these kids are very very vulnerable naye mubafulina activities ze baba bagenda okukola n'ekiri kyogambye ekyokulya in terms of eating okukola timetable y'ebyokulya muba involving nabo abaana badecidinga ebiki bye bagala okulya making sure nti biri healthy mugambe kino tugenda kirya because bwekiti ne bwekiti ne bwekiti kyogambye sleeping patterns it's all about communication gwe muzadde naye lwakuba abaana mubayita abaqueen naye ng'ate n'abaqueen balina amateeka agabafuga mubayita abaqueen nemwoza nti abaqueen bo they can get away with whatever naye ng'ate abaqueen be basinga okubaako n'amateeka so tugezeeko okulaba nti abaana tubakuza ng'ate mu communicating nabo okulaba nti you speak to them ne mubazaala si be babazaala
okitugambye.
Okay.
Just to add on that before we go, Mwamchibi.
Okay.
I know of children as young as 10 and 11 that were being treated for a situation where they wanted to commit suicide. Now, I'm saying this so that parents, back to what Baker was saying earlier, we need to be very, very vigilant with the kids. We need to watch any change in their habits, mannerism, attitudes. Personally, I am the chairman of an organization called Dore Pajule Community in the UK. That's from the Acholi side. Some of you guys here have been to our functions. Why am I saying this? One of our sole aims is the well-being of members. So which means how we work, I have this thing where I say, look to your left and look to your right. When I say look to your left, I mean the people that you don't normally talk to. And the right are the people that you normally talk to. But take that initiative and look to your left and talk to people more so you can get, so it's a collective effort. Why am I bringing this to your attention? From time to time, we have events in the community and we get lots of people from other communities. Soon I am going to be, once we get things open up, naturally, I'd like Marco team and the rest of the church to join in the activities we do. It's called Dore Pajule Community. Some of you guys are aware of them. But one of the things that we actually advocate for is the well-being, because it's fundamental here. As adults, if our well-being is at stake, how are you going to help your children? How are we going to help our people back in Uganda? So we are actually the focal point of everything. So we need to make sure that we look after that. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the speakers as well. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful and very informative. Njala kumaliriza with a question. Question, I think, to Baker. You talked about giving the children as much opportunity as possible to do activities, to keep them busy so that they don't get up to no good. Now, that also has some challenges. some of the young people, nga parent, you do your role, you try to involve them in so many activities, pay for football, you pay for piano lessons, you pay for this and that. They choose not, they don't want to do those, they want to choose their own. And they say, oh, for example, I want to play football. Now, it's a question of how do you regulate. He wants to play football, yes, you let him go play football. You don't know who he's playing football with, how long he's going to take there, what he gets up to there. That balancing act of get them to be busy, but you don't know what they're doing, where they're getting busy. So how do you handle that? How do you balance that?
Thank you very much for that question. That one, basically, if he says he wants to play football, okay, you might want him to do an activity and he doesn't want to do that activity. Go to liaise with them, speak to them. Well, I mean, what's their interest? What do I want to both of us living? I think you know, when maybe I get a musical instrument, you know. So it's good to find out what they like. Now you bw'abanga agenze football nawe manya omwana wo gy'agenze okuzanyira football oyo ajja kugamba agenze football nga naye tagenze football, you know, bw'agamba nti lwasoose okugamba nti no njagala genda football, naawe gendayo olabe where is my child going to play football, do a risk assessment. Is it safe where he's going or she's going? Is it safe? Who is he socializing with? Omupiira aguzannya nani? Bw'onaagera n'omulaba nti ngenze kuzannya mupiira ojja kuba osobola okulaba baani baazannya nabo olabe nti nokazannya nono nabo bazannya nabo ba inviting ewaka. When you invite them home ojja kulaba behaviors omanye nti ono mwana mulungi eri omwana wange oba nedda oba mugambye nga budde bukyali, naye bw'anaaba ng'agenda yekka n'agenda yekka nga eva agenda yekka ajja building a bond eyo, getting into activities ezitali nnungi, ogenda okujja okunoonya help eri abantu abandibadde bakuyamba nga it is too late, which is the problem. Sometimes parents reach out for help when it is totally too late. Omwana already bamukola trick, omanyi babakola tricks ne bamubba enjaga gye bamugambye okutunda ne bamubba, kati naaba ne balaba nti nno kati tukubanja naaba nga tasobola kivaamu. So by the time you reach out for help, it's too late. So once you notice these behaviors that have changed in your child's behavior, please address them as soon as possible. Omwana bw'atandika okugamba ngako ng'olaba kati behavior ono omwana kati atandise okukola ki, address it immediately. Otherwise bw'okireka ne kigenda nga kigenda mu maaso bw'onaatukira okunoonya help nga talina gw'asobola kuwuliriza nga it's too late, ng'ali nga naye ayagala ovaayo naye ng'ate tasobola. I don't know if that answered the question.
Badde nsaba kwongerako. Thank you very much, Becca. Bannange kino nange nkibagamba through experience. Extracurricular activities kirungi nnyo naye ng'abazadde oyina katugambe football atwala 1.5 hours to 2 hours. In my experience nze natambuza omwana owange okuva mu reception okutuuka ku senior 6 nga nina okubeerawo ku football pitch n'azannya ne muzza waka. So ebintu ebyo byonna Becca byayogeddeko oba obikatinze short, muwe kyayagala but be there. Thank you.
Tweyanziza nnyo bannange, abantu baffe abalungi baffe Becca ne Mark batukoze obulungi buyitirivu, boogedde ebintu very conclusively. Ndowooza kansabe anti Edith
Wagisebo
nkuwadde obuvunaanyizibwa obw'okwebaza abantu baffe abatubuulidde ebigambo ebirungi ebyaleero.
Amiina, teri bukulu butava eri Katonda.
Amiina.
Bannange abakulu abava okutuwa speech eyaleero, tweyanziza nnyo, tweyanzige, mwebale nnyo, mwebalire ddala ebigambo ebyo ebituzimbye ng'abazadde awamu n'abaana n'abazzukulu, era tujja kubikozesa bulungi. Era nsuubira nti ne bazadde bannange bonna ababaddeko olwaleero ebigambo ebyo babiwulidde bulungi era bajja biteeka mu nkola. Tweyanziza nnyo tweyanzeege era tweyanziza nnyo n'olunaku luno olwaleero abakulembeze baffe aba church mwenna tubeebaza okutegekera speech zino n'okutegekera omusomo gwonna ne church service. Mwebale nnyo mwebalire ddala abatimmako, mwebale nnyo mwebalire ddala okutegeka service eno era tusaba ne wiiki egenda okutandika ne tugendere bulungi. Sebo mmaze okwebaza mwebale nnyo okumpuliriza.
Mama Edith tweyanziza nnyo tweyanzeege. Bannange tooko erabika ewedde kati muli baddembe okusigala wano nga mwogera. Baby Kiyingi naye mulaba wuuya naye alabika ajja kubeera very influential mu community.
Abadde alinawo wano mukwano gwe ayagala okugamba halo.
Kakati mubeere baddembe okusigala mu chat room wano nga mwogera paka mwami Kalanzirwa n'abagoba. Naye nze mbasiibudde naye nsanyuse nnyo. Nsanyukidde ddala. Mark, it's been a long time. Thanks so much.
You're most welcome.
I think you've done a great job.
Thank
Ono
you.
mutabani wange Kiyingi ate muzzukulu wange naye bwe mulabako nsanyuka nnyo nnyo okuba nti avaamu ebigambo ebirungi bwe bityo. Thanks so much.
Mike, Mark, Mark, thank you so much. You are my namesake, Mark Mpungu. I think we met before.
Yeah, we met.
Mutabani wange Kiyingi, thank you so much, Becca. It was very good, really, yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mbadde njagala okubawaayo akantu kamu. Munzikirize.
Mukungu tusanyusa okuwuliza.
Kale neebaza nnyo aboogezi ab'olwaleero. Speeches zaabwe zibadde nnungi nnyo. Naye njagala okuwaayo information kufe abakulu. Waliwo akantu ke nafunye about bw'osobola okucleansinga blood wash. Bakayita SOS Advance Essential. Kakati mbasaba mugende mukagule, musomeeko ku gundi ku online. Kali ku £32.99. Kakati era bw'oba bali connected n'ebya abalina diabetes, abalina obulwadde obulala bwonna, cholesterol, diabetes, mwogedde, n'endwadde endala. Kale kajja kubayamba ocleansinga your blood. Kale era bwe muba mugenda okufuna vaccination, please go for the MOT. Sabayo wa doctor. Ogende mu ddwaliro bakugyeko omusaayi bacekinge okulaba kiki ky'olina ekizibu. Kakati bw'onoomanya ekizibu kyo ojja kubeera better. Then ofune ka testi. Bw'omala okufuna ka testi ogende ofune vaccination. Nga information yonna decision gy'okola ebeera yiyo. Naye nze mbawadde this information okubayamba kiki omuntu ky'asobola okukola atannagenda ku testi. Nawe bagenda ku testi, please mwenna mugende for MOT. Mumanye kiki kye mulina, kizibu ki kye mulina. Kyenvudde mbagamba ebyokuba nga nze nzize nkola mu bantu abalina COVID. Bangi bambi baluzinze obulamu bwabwe. Era mbasaba bambi mufune ka oximeter, mufune bannange ka oximeter. I've lost 2 friends and 2 relatives kubanga baali tebakalina. Mbasaba mukafune. Your levels bwe zigenda under 90 oba 92. Please mugende musikinge medical advice immediately. Tetwagala losing more people in the community.
era mubuulire ne other communities please. Kale nze kye mbadde njagala okubabuulira. Mwebale nnyo mwebalire ddala okumpa akakisa kuno okwogera ebyo.
Tweyanziza nnyo nnyabo tweyanzeege.
Kale. N'ekirala kaka SOS bakayita advance kali ku paundi 32.99 kemuba mugula kuliko ne bode y'omuntu. Temugula kalala konna bode y'omuntu eri mu orange. Kale ekyo kye njagadde okubawaako emphasis. Temufaayo ku ssente zigenda ku bulamu bwammwe, zigenda kubayamba. Kagenda kubayamba n'olwekyo muspendinga ssente nga mugula engatto oba ebintu ebirala muweereza ssente Uganda naye buli muntu afe ku bulamu bwe. Beegayiridde mwebale nnyo mwebagire ddala.
Tweyanziza nnyo nnyabo tukuwuliriza n'obwegendereza era tujja kukikola.